Listen to me, my friend. You might be going through a season of struggle, feeling like you're stuck in the fire. But I want you to know today God is preparing you. He's not punishing you, He's refining you. You see, sometimes we want the blessing, but we don't want the process that it takes to get there. The journey might be long, the nights might be dark, but I'm here to tell you God is working behind the scenes. He's shaping you, molding you, getting you ready for the destiny He's already set before you. You're not where you are by accident. You are where you are because God is preparing you for something bigger, something greater. The best is yet to come. Get ready. 1, divine timing. Divine timing is one of the most powerful concepts in the journey of faith. It's the understanding that God orchestrates everything in our lives with perfect precision. While we might look at our own struggles, desires, and ambitions and wonder why things aren't happening on our terms, we have to remember that God's timing is always right. In our human experience, we often get caught up in the clock, feeling rushed or delayed, but God isn't bound by time the way we are. He knows the exact moment for every breakthrough, every opportunity, and every victory in your life. We live in a world that tells us to hurry up, that we need to accomplish more, be more, and do more. But God's way is different. He's not concerned with how fast we move. He's focused on preparing us for what's ahead. The timing He has for us might seem slow in our eyes, but it's always on time. When we try to rush things, when we push for what we think we deserve or should have, we miss out on the lessons that are being taught in the waiting. We fail to see that God is working behind the scenes, setting everything into place for us. Sometimes we believe that because we want something, it should happen immediately. We don't understand why we've been praying for the same thing for years and it seems like nothing is changing. But God, in His infinite wisdom, sees the bigger picture. He knows exactly when you're ready for what you've been asking for. You may feel like you're standing still, but trust that He is at work in ways that see. We often want the fruit without the roots, but divine timing knows that the roots must grow deep before the tree can bear fruit. When you look at the lives of people throughout the Bible, you can see how divine timing played a crucial role in their stories. Take Joseph, for example. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but his path to that greatness wasn't straight. His journey was filled with betrayal, imprisonment, and seemingly endless delays. Yet at the right moment when he was fully prepared, God elevated him to a position of influence that he couldn't have reached any earlier. Joseph wasn't ready for the palace when he was sold into slavery. He had to grow in wisdom, strength, and character. Divine timing doesn't just move things in your life, it moves you into a place of readiness to receive what's coming. If you are in a season of waiting, understand that it's not wasted time. It's a time of preparation. Just like a seed in the ground, what you can't see is happening beneath the surface. While you may feel like you're not progressing, God is positioning you for what's next. You're being shaped, molded, and made into the person who will be able to handle the blessings you're asking for. The waiting period is not meant to frustrate you. It's meant to fortify you. It's a time to build faith, resilience, and trust in the Creator who knows exactly what you need. When you are feeling impatient, remember that God's timing is never a mistake. You may feel like you're ready for the next chapter, but He knows the exact moment when you will be equipped to handle it. If you were to get the blessing too soon, you might not have the strength to sustain it. If you were to step into the opportunity before you were ready, you might miss the lessons that are meant to prepare you for what's ahead. God is doing a work in you, even when you can't see it. It's easy to get caught up in comparing our journey to others. We see someone else's success and think, why not me? Why hasn't my time come yet? But comparison is the enemy of progress. Your path is unique and your divine timing is different from anyone else's. God's timing is not based on what others are doing. It's based on what you need to fulfill the purpose He has for you. Just because someone else is moving forward doesn't mean you're falling behind. God has His perfect plan for your life, and in His timing, everything will fall into place. The truth is that divine timing involves trust. It's about surrendering your own timeline and aligning with God's. We are often frustrated by the waiting, but the waiting period is an opportunity to deepen our trust in God. It's a chance to let go of control and let Him lead. When we are able to say, I trust you, God, even when things don't look the way we expect, that's when we are able to experience the fullness of His plan. Divine timing is about waiting with expectancy. It's not a passive waiting, but an active waiting. During the waiting period, we continue to grow, continue to pray, and continue to believe. We don't sit idly by waiting for something to happen. We trust that while we are waiting, God is working. We wait with anticipation, knowing that the breakthrough is coming at the right time, not a moment too soon and not a moment too late. It's the kind of waiting that acknowledges that God is in control and that when He says it's time, it will be exactly right. When we accept that God's timing is perfect, we find peace. We stop stressing about when things will happen and start trusting that they will happen in the right season. And when that season comes, everything will align in a way that only God can do. Until then, we embrace the waiting, knowing that He's preparing us for something greater than we could ever imagine. 2, refinement through trials. Refinement through trials is one of the most powerful and transformative aspects of the Christian walk. Life's challenges, difficulties, and seasons of hardship are not there to break you, but to shape you, mold you, and refine you. When you face trials, it can feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and the pressure can be overwhelming. But what you need to understand is that these trials are part of God's divine process. They are the fire that refines you, the storm that strengthens you, and the struggle that prepares you for the next level of your purpose. God's purpose for your life isn't just about blessings and triumphs. It's about the transformation that happens in the midst of adversity. If everything were easy, if every door opened without resistance, you would never grow into the person you're meant to be. The trials you face are not meaningless, they are purposeful. They reveal things inside of you that you didn't even know were there, both the strengths you never realized you had and the weaknesses that need to be healed. Without the heat of the fire, the gold would never be purified. We often want to avoid trials, don't we? We pray for God to take away the pain, the struggle, and the discomfort. But there's a deeper truth in those moments of trial. They are the very things that refine us. Just like a metal worker uses intense heat to purify gold, God uses life's trials to refine our character, our faith, and our understanding of who He is. The process is not always easy, but it is necessary. You may feel like you're being tested beyond your capacity, but what you might not see is that God is building endurance in you, teaching you how to stand firm and making you stronger than you were before. In these moments, it can feel like you're being squeezed from every side, like life is pushing you into a corner with no way out. But that's when you need to remember that God's refinement is happening in those very moments. He's using the pressure to create something beautiful. The testing of your faith produces perseverance, and perseverance will lead you to maturity. It's in the pressure of the trial that your roots grow deeper in God, that your foundation becomes stronger, and that your character is developed. This refining process isn't always a quick fix. It's a journey, a process that happens over time. You might face trial after trial, and sometimes it may seem like you're stuck in a cycle with no end in sight. But I want to remind you that every single trial has an expiration date. Every storm passes, every difficulty ends, and when it does, you'll be left with something more refined, more precious, and more resilient than before. God does not waste pain. He does not waste the hard seasons of life. They are tools that He uses to mold you into a vessel capable of carrying His purpose and plan. Think about the story of Job. Job was a man who went through unimaginable loss and suffering. He lost his wealth, his health, and his family, and he sat in the ashes, questioning why it was all happening. But in the midst of his trials, it was refining him. Job had to endure the pain, but by the end of his story, he had a deeper understanding of who God was and a more refined faith. His trials didn't destroy him. They were the very things that brought him closer to God and allowed him to experience His restoration in a way that wouldn't have been possible without the suffering. Trials also reveal the depth of your faith. It's easy to say you trust God when everything is going well. It's easy to praise Him when you're on the mountaintop, when the sun is shining and the doors are opening. But it's in the valley, in the depths of the trial, that your faith is truly tested. It's in the hardest moments of your life that you discover how deep your trust in God really is. You learn to lean on Him, to rely on His strength, and to trust His sovereignty when nothing else makes sense. It's through these trials that you become more dependent on God, more aware of His presence, and more aligned with His will. As you endure each trial, you are not only being refined, but you are also being prepared for the next chapter in your life. Each challenge you face builds on the one before it. And with each victory, you grow stronger, wiser, and more equipped to handle what comes next. The difficulties you face today are preparing you for the responsibilities and opportunities of tomorrow. If God were to give you the blessings, promotions, or opportunities you desire without first refining you, you might not be ready for them. The refining process is what makes you capable of handling what lies ahead. You are being equipped with the strength, wisdom, and character necessary to fulfill the calling God has placed on your life. Another thing to remember is that you are never alone in your trials. God is with you every step of the way. Even when it feels like He's distant, even when you can't see His hand at work, He's present, guiding you, comforting you, and strengthening you. His word tells us that He will never leave us nor forsake us, and that promise holds true in the midst of our trials. God's presence is what sustains you through the storm. It's His strength that carries you when you feel weak, His peace that guards your heart when anxiety rises, and His love that covers you when fear tries to take over. So the next time you find yourself in the middle of a trial, don't focus on the pain. Don't focus on the struggle. Instead, focus on the refining work that God is doing inside of you. Trust that He is shaping you, preparing you, and making you into the person He created you to be. Through the fire, you will come out stronger, purer, and more aligned with your purpose than ever before. 3, strength in the waiting. Strength in the waiting is one of the most overlooked yet powerful aspects of our spiritual journey. We often find ourselves in seasons where it feels like we're stuck, where we prayed and hoped for something, but nothing seems to change. In those moments, it's easy to feel frustrated, lost, or discouraged. But the truth is, waiting is not a passive activity. It's a time when God does His most powerful work in us. In the waiting, He is shaping us, preparing us, and building the strength we need for the future He has planned for us. When we are waiting, we tend to think that nothing is happening. We see the clock ticking and we grow impatient because we want our prayers answered now. But what if I told you that waiting isn't just a pause in time, it's an active season, one where God is doing something in you that couldn't be done any other way. Sometimes God withholds the blessing, not because He's being silent, but because He's preparing you for the blessing. Waiting strengthens your character. It builds your trust. It deepens your dependence on God. It's in the waiting that we learn to rely on God in ways we wouldn't otherwise. When we don't have the answers, when the doors seem closed, when everything feels uncertain, it's in those moments that our faith is tested and refined. Strength doesn't come from the moments of victory. It comes from the moments of struggle. Strength isn't forged when everything is going right, but when everything seems to be going wrong. In the waiting, we are forced to stand firm in our belief that God is still in control, that He's still working, even when we can't see it. The waiting period is often the hardest part of our journey. When the promises of God seem far off, it can be difficult to keep going. We may wonder why the breakthrough hasn't come yet, why the doors are still closed, or why things haven't turned out the way we expected. But what we don't always realize is that this waiting period is a time for God to strengthen us, to build endurance, and to help us grow. The waiting doesn't just build patience, it builds resilience. It's a time to press forward, even when we don't understand what's happening, trusting that God is at work. When we are waiting, we're also being shaped into a person who can handle what's coming next. Sometimes we desire to move ahead in life, to jump from one chapter to the next, but God knows that we need to be equipped for what lies ahead. The strength we gain in the waiting is what enables us to handle the responsibility and blessings that God has prepared for us. If we were to receive everything we wanted right away, we might not be ready to manage it. We might not have the wisdom, the maturity, or the character needed to carry it. The waiting builds all of these qualities within us, so that when the time is right, we will be prepared. Think about the story of Abraham and Sarah. God had promised them a child, but they had to wait for years before the promise was fulfilled. In their waiting, they experienced doubt, frustration, and even tried to take matters into their own hands. But through the process, they were strengthened. Their faith was tested and deepened. God wasn't just waiting to give them a child. He was preparing them to be the parents of a nation. Their waiting period wasn't wasted. It was a time of growth and refinement. The strength in the waiting is also about learning to trust God's timing. We may not understand why we have to wait or why things are taking longer than expected, but we can trust that God's timing is perfect. He knows exactly when we are ready for what He has for us. His plan is far greater than our own, and in the waiting, He is aligning everything in our lives for the right moment. Our waiting is not about sitting idle. It's about trusting that God is working even when we can't see it. It's about believing that He's not just working in our circumstances, but He's working in us, changing us, and preparing us for what's ahead. While waiting, we also learn the power of hope. Hope is the anchor that keeps us grounded in the midst of uncertainty. It's the belief that God will fulfill His promises even when we don't see any evidence of it yet. It's the assurance that He is faithful and that He will bring to pass everything He has spoken over our lives. Hope doesn't come from seeing the end result. It comes from knowing that God is faithful to His word. It's the quiet confidence that He is working on our behalf, even when the wait feels long. In the waiting, we also learn how to persevere. Waiting can be exhausting, especially when it feels like nothing is changing. But in those moments, we are called to keep going. We are called to keep pressing forward, even when we don't feel like it. Perseverance doesn't come when things are easy. It comes when things are difficult, when every step forward feels like a struggle. But as we continue to move forward in faith, we begin to see the strength that is being built in us. Perseverance doesn't just strengthen us physically, it strengthens us spiritually, teaching us how to endure with grace and patience. The strength gained in the waiting is the strength that will carry us through future challenges. Each season of waiting is preparing us for the next battle, the next breakthrough, and the next opportunity. God is building within us a resilience that will allow us to face whatever comes our way with confidence, knowing that He is with us every step of the way. The strength we gain in the waiting is not just for today, it's for the rest of our lives. It's the strength that allows us to stand firm in the face of adversity, to trust God's plan even when it's hard to understand, and to keep moving forward even when the path is uncertain. When we embrace the waiting, we open ourselves up to the transformation God wants to bring. Waiting is not a wasted time. It's a time of preparation, strengthening, and growth. It's a time when God is working behind the scenes, preparing us for what lies ahead. The strength we gain in the waiting will serve us well, not just for today, but for every challenge, every opportunity, and every blessing that comes our way. 4, trust the process. Trusting the process is one of the hardest yet most powerful aspects of faith. It's easy to trust when things are going well, when doors are opening, and when everything seems to be falling into place. But the real test comes when things aren't going according to plan, when you feel like you're stuck, or when it seems like nothing is working. In those moments, trusting the process is about surrendering to the fact that God is at work, even when we can't see it, and believing that His ways are far greater than our own. We often want things to happen immediately. We want our prayers answered right now. We want solutions to our problems today. And we want to know exactly what's coming next. But the process doesn't always work like that. God doesn't rush things. He doesn't operate on our timeline, and that can be frustrating. But it's in those moments when we have to remember that God is in control, even when we can't see the whole picture. Trusting the process is about letting go of the need for immediate results and allowing God to unfold His plan in His own timing. The process is never easy, and often it's messy. There are moments of doubt, fear, and frustration along the way. There are times when you'll feel like giving up, when you'll question if the promise is even meant for you. But God doesn't call us to a life of instant gratification. He calls us to a life of growth, development, and transformation. And that happens through the process, the waiting, the struggles, the moments of uncertainty, They're all part of how God shapes us into the people He created us to be. Think about the way a seed grows into a tree. The process doesn't happen overnight. There's time in the soil, time in the darkness, time in the cold of winter, before the tree can eventually reach its full height. If we were to dig up the seed too soon, we'd interrupt the process, and the tree would never grow as it was meant to. It's the same with us. If we try to rush God's plan for our lives, we may interrupt the process that's shaping us into the person we need to become in order to handle the blessing we're asking for. The process requires patience, persistence, and trust. Throughout the Bible, we see stories of people who had to trust the process. Take Moses, for example. God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, but the journey didn't happen immediately. There were years of preparation, years of waiting, and even moments of doubt and fear. Moses didn't have all the answers, and he didn't always understand the full plan, but he trusted God. He followed the process, even when it was hard. And eventually, God led him and the Israelites to freedom. Had Moses not trusted the process, he might have missed the opportunity for the Israelites to experience their breakthrough. We can look at Joseph as another example. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but his path to the fulfillment of those dreams was anything but straight. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into prison, and forgotten. But through it all, Joseph trusted the process. He didn't see the big picture, but he trusted that God was at work, even when things looked bleak. Joseph's faithfulness during the process led him to a position of influence and authority where he could save not only his family, but an entire nation. The process prepared Joseph for the blessing, and when the time came, he was ready to receive it. Trusting the process means having faith that God is working in every detail of our lives, even when we can't see the outcome. It's knowing that there's purpose in the waiting, that every step, every setback, and every moment of uncertainty is part of the bigger picture. God doesn't waste anything. He doesn't waste time, He doesn't waste struggles, and He doesn't waste pain. Every moment of our journey is being used to shape us, to grow us, and to prepare us for what's ahead. One of the hardest parts of trusting the process is learning to let go of control. We like to know what's next. We want to plan our future, map out every step, and make sure everything goes according to our schedule. But trusting the process means surrendering our plans and our timelines to God. It means acknowledging that He knows what's best for us, and that His plan is greater than any plan we could come up with. It's not about being passive or sitting back and waiting for something to happen. It's about actively trusting that God is working, even when we don't see the results immediately. Trusting the process also means trusting that God is always with us, even when things don't make sense. We may not understand why things are happening the way they are, or why the breakthrough is taking longer than we expected, but the truth is that God is never absent, even in the waiting. His presence is with us, guiding us, comforting us, and strengthening us. Trusting the process means trusting that He is faithful, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. There's also a deep sense of peace that comes with trusting the process. When we stop trying to control every detail, when we stop stressing about the future, and when we truly surrender our worries to God, we can experience a peace that passes understanding. Trusting the process allows us to let go of our anxiety and embrace the confidence that God's plan is unfolding, even when we can't see it clearly. The process doesn't always look the way we expect. It may involve detours, delays, and unexpected challenges. But God's plan is always perfect. He knows exactly what we need and when we need it. His timing is impeccable, and His ways are higher than our ways. When we trust the process, we open ourselves up to God's best for our lives. We align ourselves with His purpose, and we allow Him to take us on a journey that will ultimately lead us to the fulfillment of our dreams, our calling, and our destiny. Trusting the process means knowing that in the end, God will make all things beautiful in His time. 5, growth in adversity. Growth in adversity is a concept that may seem counterintuitive at first. We often think of growth as something that happens in comfortable, easy circumstances when everything is going well and we are at our best. However, it is often through adversity, through the trials, the hardships, and the struggles that we experience the deepest and most profound growth in our lives. Adversity is not just a challenge to overcome, it is an opportunity to transform, to evolve, and to become the person we were meant to be. When we face adversity, it's natural to feel overwhelmed. The weight of the challenges can seem insurmountable, and it can be hard to see any purpose behind the pain. But if we take a step back and look at how adversity has shaped others, we begin to see a pattern. Growth often comes in the most difficult of circumstances. In fact, many of the most successful, resilient, and impactful people in history have been forged in the fires of adversity. They didn't just endure, they thrived. They used their challenges as stepping stones to a greater purpose. Adversity has a unique way of revealing who we truly are. When things are going smoothly, it's easy to be comfortable, to coast through life without really having to stretch ourselves. But when adversity strikes, it forces us to dig deeper. It brings out qualities in us that we didn't even know existed. Strength, perseverance, patience, resilience, these are the traits that are often developed through struggle. It is when we are pushed to our limits that we discover what we are truly capable of. In the midst of adversity, we are forced to rely on something greater than ourselves. We lean on faith, we draw from inner strength, and we gain a deeper understanding of what it means to trust. There is a beauty in the way adversity refines us. Just as gold is purified in the fire, our character is refined through the heat of trials. The more intense the heat, the purer the result. Adversity doesn't just test us, it polishes us. It removes the impurities that are holding us back from becoming the person we were created to be. Every difficulty, every setback, every struggle contributes to the process of shaping us into something stronger, something more valuable. What begins as an overwhelming challenge eventually becomes the foundation for personal transformation. We begin to shed old habits, negative mindsets, and weaknesses, and we emerge from the struggle as a stronger version of ourselves. The idea of growth through adversity is not just about enduring hardship, it is about seeing the opportunity within the struggle. It is about reframing our perspective so that we can learn and grow from what we are experiencing. Instead of focusing on the pain, we shift our focus to the lessons, the growth, and the resilience that are being developed. When we look at adversity this way, it becomes something that we can face with courage and confidence. It's no longer just something to survive, but something to be embraced as part of the process of becoming the person we are meant to be. One of the key aspects of growth in adversity is the development of perseverance. When everything is going well, it's easy to keep going, to stay motivated, to push forward. But in adversity, perseverance becomes a choice. It becomes an act of will. We can choose to give up, or we can choose to keep going, even when the road is tough. Perseverance is what keeps us moving forward, even when we don't know how things are going to turn out. It's what allows us to keep fighting, even when we're exhausted, even when we feel like we have nothing left to give. The more we choose perseverance, the stronger it becomes. Over time, we learn that we are capable of far more than we ever imagined. In addition to perseverance, adversity also teaches us patience. We live in a world where everything is fast-paced, where we expect instant results, and where waiting can feel like a waste of time. But adversity forces us to slow down and wait for the results. It teaches us that not everything happens on our timeline. Not every answer comes when we want it, and not every breakthrough occurs as soon as we ask for it. Through adversity, we learn to trust the process, to remain patient, and to have faith that the timing is in God's hands. Patience in adversity is not passive, it is an active trust that things are unfolding as they should, even when we can't see the outcome yet. Adversity also deepens our empathy and compassion for others. When we go through difficult times, we begin to understand the struggles of others in a way we might not have before. We can relate to their pain, their frustration, and their confusion because we've been there too. This connection to others is one of the greatest gifts of adversity. It allows us to be more understanding, more kind, and more willing to help those who are in need. Our own suffering becomes the foundation for our ability to help others who are suffering. Through adversity, we learn to become vessels of compassion, using our experiences to bring comfort and healing to others. Another aspect of growth through adversity is the opportunity for spiritual development. When we face challenges, we often find ourselves questioning our faith, our purpose, and our connection to God. But it is through these moments of questioning and doubt that we find a deeper relationship with God. Adversity pushes us to rely on Him more, to seek His guidance, and to trust His plan for our lives. It is in the midst of struggle that our faith is tested and refined. We learn to lean on God's promises, to trust in His timing, and to rely on His strength when we feel weak. Adversity becomes the soil in which our faith grows stronger. While adversity is never easy, it is through adversity that we often experience our most significant periods of growth. The challenges we face in life are not just obstacles to overcome, they are opportunities for transformation. As we navigate through difficult times, we become more resilient, more patient, and more compassionate. We gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, of others, and of God's faithfulness. Growth in adversity is not about avoiding pain or hardship. It is about embracing it, learning from it, and allowing it to shape us into the person we were created to be. Through adversity, we become stronger, more refined, and more prepared for the future that lies ahead. 6, purpose and preparation. Purpose and preparation is an idea that often goes unnoticed in our busy lives. We tend to focus on the end result, the goal, or the dream we are chasing, but often miss the importance of the journey that leads us there. Preparation is not a mere waiting period or something that can be skipped. It is a vital and intentional part of the process that shapes us and equips us for the fulfillment of our purpose. Without preparation, we would not be ready for what lies ahead. The time spent preparing is not time wasted. It is time invested in our growth, development, readiness for the opportunities and challenges that will come our way. In our culture, we live in a world that wants everything fast. We want quick success, instant recognition, and immediate rewards. We get frustrated when things take longer than expected or when we feel like we aren't making progress. But God's plan for our lives doesn't work on our timeline. The purpose that He has for us requires preparation, and that preparation often takes time. We are often in a hurry to see the results, but God is more concerned with who we are becoming during the preparation phase. It's not just about reaching the destination, it's about what we learn, how we grow, and what we become along the way. Consider how athletes train for a competition. They don't just wake up one day and win. They spend years preparing their bodies, owning their skills, and learning the strategies they need to succeed. The hours spent practicing, the setbacks they encounter, and the discipline they develop in preparation are all part of what will allow them to perform at their highest level. Without that preparation, they wouldn't be ready for the big moment. They wouldn't be able to handle the pressure that comes with competition. Similarly in life, God often has us in seasons of preparation to build the skills, the character, and the strength we need for the future He has planned for us. Preparation also builds patience. It teaches us to trust the process and to know that God is working in us even when we don't see the full picture. When we are preparing for something, it often feels like nothing is happening, like we are stuck in a holding pattern. But that feeling of being stuck is often a sign that God is doing His work within us. He is refining our hearts, developing our character, and equipping us with the tools we need for what is to come. We may not see the results right away, but the seeds of growth are being planted. In those moments when it feels like nothing is changing, God is preparing us in ways we don't always understand. Another aspect of preparation is the development of our resilience. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way, and if we aren't prepared, we can easily be overwhelmed. But preparation builds resilience. It strengthens our ability to endure hardship, to bounce back from failure, and to face adversity with confidence. The setbacks we experience during preparation are not signs of failure. They are opportunities to grow stronger, to develop grit, and to learn how to persevere. Each challenge we face is a part of the preparation process, teaching us to handle difficulties with grace and resilience. Preparation is also a time of deep reflection and self-discovery. In the quiet moments of preparation, we are given the space to evaluate our motives, our goals, and our desires. We have the opportunity to examine our hearts and to ask ourselves whether we are truly ready for what is ahead. The preparation phase allows us to refine our vision and to align ourselves with the purpose God has for us. It is in this time of reflection that we begin to understand who we are, what we value, and what we are called to do. Preparation is a time of deepening our relationship with God and growing in our understanding of His will for our lives. Purpose in preparation also requires a willingness to learn. We often think we know what we need to do to succeed, but preparation teaches us to be humble, to listen, and to be open to new ideas. During this time, we learn from others, from our experiences, and from the lessons that life has to offer. God uses preparation to teach us skills, wisdom, and insights that will be crucial for the journey ahead. If we resist the process of learning, we may miss the very lessons that will equip us for success. Being teachable and willing to grow during the preparation phase is essential for fulfilling our purpose. The purpose of preparation is not always immediately clear, and it's easy to become discouraged when we can't see the end result. But just like a potter shapes clay, God is molding us during our preparation. He is working behind the scenes to ensure that we are ready for the future He has planned for us. We may feel like we are in a season of waiting, but it is often during these seasons that the most profound changes are happening within us. We are learning to trust God more, to develop patience, to embrace challenges, and to grow in resilience. All of these qualities are vital for our purpose, and they are being built during the times of preparation. Preparation also teaches us to be faithful in the small things. We may have big dreams and lofty goals, but before we can step into the fullness of our purpose, we must first prove faithful in the small, everyday tasks. Preparation is often about doing the little things well, showing up, being consistent, and making progress even when it feels insignificant. It is in the small acts of obedience and faithfulness that we are being prepared for the larger responsibilities that God has for us. If we can be trusted with the small things, God knows that we can be trusted with much more. When we embrace the process of preparation, we begin to see that it is not a detour or a delay, it is an integral part of God's plan for our lives. The challenges, the lessons, the growth, and the transformation that occur during this time are all preparing us for something greater.